Welcome to the bold analysis. I want us to look at matters economics and financial developments. As if you have, for those who follow the bold, you realize that on Thursday I tend to look at finances and economics. So today I'm going to produce two pieces on that, two podcasts on that, and I want us to start directly from United States of America, a development that spells a very wrong news for our administration, which is amongst the developing countries in Africa that are affected by that. Before we delve deep into this, I want to humbly request you to subscribe to our channel, click the notification bell, and also like our video. The more you support, the more you like the videos, the more we get our videos are suggested to other viewers, and I'm so grateful for your support. Federal Reserve System, which is official central bank of the United States of America, have increased their interest rates. And experts are globally from US and even across the globe are already feeling that this is a move that is going to spill over in other countries, rather developing countries. And this is purely a US move and not really done with a specific intention, especially for directly to affect Africa. But what is happening here is the Federal Reserve Bank, which is a Fed in short, is controlling inflation, which is at its record highest since COVID-19 pandemic. So they want to control the inflation, and they're saying that they will control it to return it to the objective 2%, but it's not still as where it is supposed to be. So many Kenyans have been asking, and I even saw when you're doing asking, so this move, how is it going to affect us as Kenyans? Number one, I need to acquaint you with some very interesting facts here. Kenya is an import country. Our imports is more than what we export. So in terms of the foreign income, and when we import, it means we are spending a lot of money to buy, and most of the global currency is the global transaction currency is the US dollar. So that is something you also need to know. Number two is our borrowing limit is high, and we are at the risk. We are amongst the countries that are at default as risk. If you look at this screenshot in your screen, it was shared by a financial expert, I think, who is showing, if you look at there, Kenya is in that list amongst the countries that are at risk of defaulting in 2022. So apart from the import imbalance, we are also on debts. Of course, it's something that we have to look at. Now, I've been looking at different articles just to consolidate this, and before I produced this podcast, articles and what the global newsrooms are actually talking about. And I realized, I got that the managing director of the International Monetary Fund, IMF, Kristalina Georgieva, was worried previously, saying that Fed and other rate hiking central banks should stay mindful of this spillover to vulnerable emerging economies, especially developing countries. So there is the ripple effect. There is an effect that this brings. And I want us to look at that, because that's where you will understand why it's a very wrong news for the current regime. We have a government that was very dismissive at Uhuru Kenyatta when Uhuru Kenyatta tried to defend himself, saying that some of the things, especially our inflation, it is partly caused by the global trends, or what is happening at the global stage, and these are forces that are beyond his control. I remember President Uhuru Kenyatta saying about that. But we came, and when this administration took up, they came with all-time one-stop shop remedy for everything. So US is saying that there are two effects, that there are some big two effects to this I want us to look at. Number one, as the rates rise in the United States of America, the American government and corporate bonds start to look very attractive to other global investors. So what normally happens is this: they can pull money from the poorer and middle income countries. Now the global investors, including US truly, back here at home, they will most likely use our money, or rather withdraw money from the middle income and countries to invest in the United States. This shifts dries up the US dollar and push down currencies in the developing countries. So what is happening here is, when the interest rates are high, Uko, it's an investment opportunity for investors globally. So you will see a trend where maybe what you've already saved here, what you have here locally, is a prime market for them. And with that, our shilling goes down. Falling currencies is a big problem because they make it more expensive to pay for the imported good. Now, on the US people, when our currency is down, and we, of course, even here now, we shall also have their own inflation, they tend not to buy the imported goods because they're equally expensive in the US. With that low consumption pattern, it means that what we are exporting is going to be less. When we are exporting less, and we also have our own problems back here, our foreign income also goes down. Now, this is the function. I served with this about, apart from the economic value, the profit value that it adds to the global investor. Why Kenyan investors can rush to invest there. There is the issue of the loans. It also means that higher borrowing costs for countries that have borrowed heavily the US dollars, leading to economic challenges. One thing I'm yet to find out is, when we borrowed money, and we borrowed money at when the interest rate was lower, I think they've increased it from 4.75, and it's almost heading to 5. I don't know the exact rating, the exact figures. But because we borrow from US and we borrow, the borrowing currency is dollar, it makes the loans very expensive. And we run, that's why I was telling you that we run the risk of defaulting. Defaulting will, when you don't pay loan, it's difficult even you to have what is called loan diplomacy, where debt diplomacy, where you can always ask for amnesty, renegotiating, restructure. The conversation about restructure and negotiating are not there if you're a defaulter. And of course, if you're a defaulter, you're also in the bad books. So that means you might not qualify for the loans in future. Now, what the exchange rate volatility is likely to affect the value of debt owed externally and that of export earnings. Because when the US dollar is up and we are exporting, it means our shilling is down. Will not get the value for our goods because our shilling is down. So that means anatumia pesa kidogo sana to buy from you because you are exporting. But when your shilling is up, inamaanisha anatumia pesa mingi, atakulipa pesa mingi. If the shilling is 130, if the exchange rate is 130, that means atakulipa 130 per item to buy that good. But when the shilling is 100, it means utalipwa kidogo. So that's why even the central bank will have to design ways to make sure that they cushion our Kenyan shilling from depreciating. But let me just take you away from the financial statements and the global forces. The biggest challenge of this is, because we also have our inflation here, this our central bank will likely also shoot our loans, shoot our interest rates. It slows the growth and even wipes out jobs, creates unemployment, or rather brings unemployment. So these are all issues that are on table. The tragedy where I see this as a very wrong footage for William Ruto and the administration is because this global market forces becomes a bit of a challenge to explain to Mama Mboga. It's a big problem to explain to Mama Mboga. And when Uhuru tried to say that the prices of unga and the fuel and this stuff are up because of the global forces, he was dismissed and trashed. I remember Musalia Mudavadi asking kwamba vita ya Ukraine inaingiliana aje na vitu za Kenya. At one point, we were in a country where we dismissed and said, oh, Uhuru got it wrong. So now we are dealing with it firsthand, not very many months ago. In fact, just 3 months into it, he was told vita vya haziingiani. So I'm looking at how Ruto is going to communicate to the people down here, to Mama Mboga and the bodaboda person, that look, wait, what we were thinking will help us pick up the economy, it's still not, because of what is happening in the global areas. And it's very difficult to explain it for the US, because for quite some time in William Ruto's administration, one of the biggest challenges has been that you over-reliance on the West, where the US and the Europe. And number two is that there are those who feel like foreign powers supported his candidature or were behind his presidency. So when they come, and part of the problems we're going through, it's because of them, Kenyans tend not to take it, really. So the reserve is high, but we've also lifted the ban on GMO, and we are now importing GMO. Who is benefiting? Make your guess. If you've been listening to me, make your guess. We had paused as Mixter fixed it all. And what I'm waiting to see is how we are going to, the strategies we are going to deploy to manage the public expectation. I think State House will have to design many ways and different strategies to make the Kenyan people understand. Now, to this level, the way, and I mentioned, the way there was a lot of transparency in communication and messaging at campaign trail, that design is still needed now. The one thing that I've always said is, yes, we rely more on loans to service our projects, and we even borrow for recurrent expenditure. That's the saddest part of it. But we must thrive to make sure that we balance our exports with imports. We are an import-dependent country. We are importing everything. US is facing these challenges because they're partly blaming on the shipment sanctions on the Ukraine, on Russia, I think, over Russian-Ukraine war that is going on, and there's still people are still healing from the ripple effect of the COVID-19. So what are we saying? That locally things are not going to be good, and it's good we tell the Kenyan people that don't expect an overnight solution. William Ruto might really have to contend with the way situations are and keep on telling the hustlers to wait, because now the reality is that it's not about Kenya. We are not a standalone economy. We are not a superpower, and even superpowers are struggling. And because we're dependent on other factors, may have to contend with that. Now, that is it. I'm back with the Ghosts of the Hustler Fund. It's an amazing one here. Make sure you subscribe and support our channel.